Good afternoon, Patriots. This is the American Vision, broadcast on the TLBTV network and brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Bill Muckler, and I'm coming to you from Florida's beautiful Space Coast on the Atlantic coast of America. And today we have a special program today and a special guest, a great patriot, a good friend, and the host of his own show, Mr. Josh Bernstein. Josh, I'd like to get your take on the red wave and the blue wave, and all the polls are coming out because we found out back in 2016 the polls weren't very accurate. So what are you seeing now?
Well, look, I think there's a couple things you need to look at. Obviously, statistics and history isn't necessarily on the Republican side. However, we are in different times. This Republican president is completely different than any other president we've ever seen or witnessed. So I think you can kind of throw some of the old rules out the window. With that being said, I don't believe that there's going to be a blue wave. I don't believe there's going to be a red wave. Likely you're going to see a blue trickle or a red trickle. Which one surfaces more, we don't know yet. But I will say this, it looks as though that the Senate is looking very, very good. There's an absolute, definite, 100%, put it in the bank, it's going to happen, takeover. That is the North Dakota seat with Heidi Heitkamp, who, by the way, in case people out there in North Dakota don't know, she's dealing with her own scandal back when she was the Attorney General in North Dakota. She oversaw the, Wahpeton Indian School. And the Wahpeton Indian School was a Native American school for underprivileged and kids that were having problems with things at home, but also in the community, getting arrested, things like that. Troubled kids, basically. And what happened is there was reports of abuse as far as sexual abuse, physical abuse, underage drinking, even holding kids upside down and putting their heads in the toilet and giving them swirlies. There was another in which a student punched another student and knocked him out. And when she was Attorney General, she completely looked the other way. She did not do anything at all. She didn't even try to investigate it. Turns out that one of the teachers that was accused of this later ended up getting charged with 2 counts of statutory rape against a child. So you can pretty much count the North Dakota seat in our column. I believe right now I've seen polls as much as 19 to 22 percentage points up for the Republican. Another seat that we can look at as hopefully a takeover will be John Tester's seat in Montana. I think polls are looking very, very good there. That would be a wonderful development as well. And then you have the one in Florida where you're at, where you have Bill Nelson and you have Rick Scott. That's going to be neck and neck all the way to the very bitter end. I think with the fundraising letter that recently surfaced with Bill Nelson taking advantage of Hurricane Michael, victims and survivors, hopefully that will play out in the attack ads in Florida. I don't know if they are or not, as I'm on the Southwest United States. Mm-hmm. But we'll hopefully see that happens. I think another race you got to worry about, though, in Florida is this Gillum, who is, a really, really dangerous character. I mean, we're talking, the reincarnation of Barack Obama in some respects. And, smooth talking, seems, pretty intelligent, and is very, very radical. DeSantis would obviously be the better choice there. So hopefully that's going to work out. Ted Cruz and Beto, they just had their debate here last night. Their last and final debate got very, very crazy, a little raucous. But Ted Cruz, I believe, is up anywhere between 7 and 12 points in that race. So that's a hold. You've got Phil Bresden now trailing behind Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee. So that is going to be a hold, again, because of Bob Corker retiring. We're not gaining, but we're holding. And then you have Jeff the Flake, who has finally retired. And now you have a very nasty, contentious race. The one and only debate was last night with Kirsten Sinema, an absolute radical leftist communist, masquerading and pretending to be an independent, and Martha McSally, a war hero, and someone that was the first female pilot to fly combat missions in Iraq. Pretty solid conservative, a little bit on the rhino side, to be quite honest. but much better than what we would have with Kirsten Sinema. That race is pretty tight. I believe McSally's up anywhere between 3 and 5 percentage points there. So there's a lot of close races. They shouldn't be close races, to be quite honest, especially with all of the accolades and accomplishments that President Trump has been able to accomplish with the complete, dismantling, if you will, of everything known as due process, as, guilt before innocence. I mean, just everything that they have done, the violence, the rhetoric, everything that they've done, chasing people out of restaurants, and then you've got the deep state and all these other bad actors, and it's still amazing that he's been able to accomplish all that he's been able to accomplish. So it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen. I think in the end you're looking at Republicans gaining, I would say, an absolute minimum of 2 seats, but hopefully as many as 5 or 6. I think it would be a safe bet. The House is a little bit different. Again, I think you're going to see either a blue trickle or a red trickle. I don't know which one it's going to be. But look, there's some polling out there, even in California, in deep blue California, in which the Republicans are even winning a little bit in some districts. So you never know what's really going to happen there. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Bottom line is we've got to get people out to vote, and we don't want people to vote early. A lot of people say, oh, I voted already. They've got their sticker, and, I'm so happy I sent in my ballot. No, that's the worst thing you can do. Look, I've interviewed James O'Keefe. We know who James O'Keefe is from Project Veritas. He's put out numerous videos on deception and voter fraud and things like that. And if you remember in the election in 2016, he put out one video in particular in which the guy said, we've been busing people back and forth. We've been registering illegal aliens. We've been giving them, a pizza and beer and ice cream and, all kinds of goodies to get them to vote. And then he says at the end of that video, we've been cheating in elections for over 50 years and we're not going to stop now. There's also video of people stuffing ballots in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and other states as well. So again, voting early is the worst thing anyone could do, because when you vote early, your vote is left out there longer, which gives an opportunity for a bad actor to change it. So I say flood the polling booths on election day, or at least the day before at the earliest, so that they don't have an opportunity to finagle anything or change things behind the scenes.
Yeah. Something you mentioned I wanted to bring up that fits in with this voting early is I've just heard that this Beto O'Rourke, who's running against Ted Cruz, was involved in a drunken driving accident some years ago, and this is all just now coming out, and I think we're going to hear a lot more about it. And apparently he left the scene of the accident. Well, somebody finally asked him about that, and he said, oh no, I didn't leave the scene of the accident, but the police report says that he did. And I think I would go with the police report before I would go with what a politician says. But the whole thing of it is, none of the 3 major news networks, or CNN or MSNBC, are going to report this at all. So somehow this is going to have to get out, and it's going to have to get out kind of slowly over the internet, and before it really picks up. So if anybody voted early without knowing that information, that could change the outcome of that election too, because Cruz, like you said, Cruz and O'Rourke are very close.
Well, one thing. Not only that, let me add to that. You only have an infinitesimal piece of this. Not only did he leave the scene of the accident, not only was he drunk in the street and trying to grope one of the female patrons at the bar, but also him and his friends were drunk one night again, and they broke into the University of Texas, El Paso, and they were arrested for trespassing. Okay, so that's another incident that he had. Not only that, his mother bankrupted a 69-year-old family business called Charlotte's Furniture in El Paso, and ended up paying a $250,000 fine and 5 years probation. She should have been thrown in jail, but she wasn't, because her late husband was a a very prominent judge in El Paso, Texas. Long story short, she should have been charged with money laundering, but they said it was like some kind of financial infractions or whatever it is that they lowered it to. So the mother's a criminal. And then the late father, who was killed in El Paso on a bicycle in the 80s, was actually pulled over and arrested. And in his glove box, inside of a condom, they found a white substance. Now, when they arrested him and they brought him down to the station, they figured out who he was. He was a very prominent judge at the time. And the people at the El Paso Police Department, they decided to not charge him with the white substance. And there was a subsequent trial in which the sheriff of the police department at the time admitted in cross testimony in his own trial that he took the, quote, white powder, went back to his house, dumped it in the toilet, and flushed it before they could do any kind of forensic testing to find out whether or not that substance was cocaine, heroin, crack, or what have you. So again, this is someone that's not squeaky clean. He may look like a, quote, Kennedy, or he likes to skateboard around and wear cardigans and was in a punk band and he seems hip and cool. He's very dangerous. He's for open borders. He's for abolishing ICE. He's for every single thing that Nancy Pelosi's wish list would have on it. And people in Texas, I'm hoping and praying, are smart enough to see through the lies and to actually go out there and vote for the real conservative in that race, which again is Senator Ted Cruz. Yeah,
which is a very good example of why people shouldn't vote early, and because this information will eventually come out. And as we're talking about this, you talk about the red trickle or the blue trickle, and that's going to be mostly for the House, I think, is in the off years, usually the number of voters that come out are much less than in the presidential elections. But what we got to think about this time, Josh, and I'd like to hear your take on, is Trump has accomplished so much stuff with the economy. Two very good justices on the Supreme Court. The economy, unemployment, and there's just so many things that he's accomplished. Bringing home the Pastor Brunson, the trade agreements that he's got, between Mexico and Canada, for example. All these are helping American workers. Why would anyone want to go back and vote for the Democrats in the House and Nancy Pelosi-led House that's going to take all that away from us and going to be an obstacle to prevent us from this great new wave of economy and prosperity that we have?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons why people would want to do that. Number one, they're not educated. Number two, they've been brainwashed. Number three, they've been listening to CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, and CBS, who absolutely collectively despise and hate this president and will not report any of the good news that has come out of the White House and has been great for the economy and for America. So they've been sheltered from the truth, basically. And so what happens is all they hear about is Russia, Russia, Russia. All they hear about is Trump is evil, Trump is this, Trump is that. And they go out there and they cancel out our well-informed vote. And thankfully and hopefully the youth will not come out in this election. Hopefully they will not vote like they normally do. And they don't typically vote a lot, but we saw what happened in 2012 and 2008. They did come out quite a bit, and minorities came out quite a bit. So hopefully, if this is going to be what I would consider a base election, Republicans have a better chance. If this is going to be, a referendum election against President Trump, and all the youth are motivated and everything else, if this is more of an issues-based election, we may be in trouble. We may be in trouble, but I don't know if it's going to come out that way. A lot of polling and a lot of people are suggesting that a lot of the minorities are not really enthusiastic about going out and voting. So again, I think that's a good thing, because I think what it does is when these people that are uninformed and uneducated on the issues go out and vote, they cancel out our well-informed vote. And we actually, as conservatives, need to save the country from the people that are not educated on the issues, that go out there and vote. And yes, they have a right to go out and vote, but we have a right to go out and vote and correct their madness. And let's hope and pray that there'll be enough Americans, millions of Americans, that, as you said, are happy with the direction of the country, are happy with the direction of the economy, are happy with the fact that for the first time ever, any president has ever sat down with the North Koreans to try to create some type of peace deal and deflame that situation on the Asian Peninsula, and all the other things that he's done as far as getting countries to stop cheating against us, currency manipulation, all these different things, trade deals and everything else. You're right, there's a lot riding on this. We cannot be complacent. We cannot be apathetic. We've got to go out there as one voice and say that we want to not only make America great again, but we want to keep America great. And that really, truly is what this is about, because to the left, this is not a midterm election. I've said this many times on many shows. This is a 2-year wait at retribution and revenge. And they are motivated in that respect. Now, their base is. That doesn't mean that the youth is. That doesn't mean that minorities are in general. So again, if this is a base election, Republicans have a very good shot. If it's not a base election and it's a referendum on President Trump because of all the lies being told by the media, well, then we might be in trouble.
Yeah. And we talked earlier before the show, and I wanted to use a sports analogy for for our viewers, in that sometimes, the coach wants to run up the score because he wants to get better ratings or whatever. And what I'm suggesting is what the Republicans need to do is we need to get out and vote and run up the score, because if anybody thinks, well, I won't vote because my candidate will probably just, he'll squeak by or she'll squeak by or something like that.
Right.
That's not the way it's going to work this time. I think we really need to get out. We need to be the ones who are enthusiastic and motivated and energetic, and get out and run up the vote and show everybody that we really support the president and all the good things that he's done for us over the last 2 years.
Absolutely. And look, not only that, look, we have to understand that, if it does look as though it's going south in the House, and it looks as though that we might lose the House, then I say, and I've said this on many shows before, and it's not a defeatist attitude, it's a smart attitude, that we ought to reinforce and fortify the Senate. Take all of our eggs, take all of our money, take everything, and fortify that Senate, make it strong and robust, because if the Democrats do win the House, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to try to impeach the president. Now, if we have an extra 6 or 7 Republican MAGA-type senators, we're not going to have to worry about impeachment because it'll die in the Senate. It starts in the House, then it goes from the House to the Senate, and then the Senate has to decide whether or not they're going to convict. They've only convicted 2 people and never have removed anyone. So, again, it's a waste of time for the left, number one. Number two, they're going to expend all of their political capital that they would have gained by winning the House by doing this, because it's going to upset more Republican and independent type of voters that want to get things done and continue to get things done. And in 2020, it's going to be an absolute blowout for President Trump. But they are planning on doing that. And so, look, if you lose the House isn't as big a deal as the Senate, because the House is every 2 years. The Senate is every 6 years. It's a lot harder to hold on to the Senate than it is the House. You can always win back the House. We could win back the House 2 years from now in 2020 if we end up losing it now. But as I said before, as a strategist, as a paid political analyst, I look at this from a standpoint of how do I protect the president, and how do I protect the country, and how do I protect the Constitution, and the fact that we want to make sure that what has been done in the first 2 years, even if there's going to be a slowdown of success for the next 2, we know that the following 6 are going to be great again. And so we have to look at it from a smarter standpoint. I say fortify that Senate. you get 6 or 7 new senators in there. It doesn't matter what the House wants to do at that point.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point that I think a lot of people don't understand, because the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi and her top people, are all saying, well, if we get in, we're going to impeach the president. And then some of the Democrats are trying to say, well, don't talk about that because we don't want to rile up the Republicans. But even if they vote to impeach, like you said, then it has to go to the Senate for conviction. And actually, in order to get convicted in the Senate, it takes a 75% majority vote. So that means 75 senators would have to vote to impeach President Trump. And I don't think that you could, if we have, say, 55 to 60 Republican senators, you're not going to find 30 or more of them that are going to defect and vote that way. So it's an impossibility. So what will happen, though, is they'll spend all that time in the House. If the Democrats get in the House, they'll spend all that time in the House. We won't get anything done. And the only thing that they'll really work on is trying to repeal the new tax laws and everything, and try and get back to more regulations and higher taxes, which are going to, put the country back into a tailspin again, just like we had for the 8 years that Obama was in.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I'll use one of Barack Obama's famous words: a phone and a pen. Well, guess what? President Trump, he's going to have a phone and a pen, and he's going to be able to veto any of those bills that try to take away the tax cut bill, that try to reinstate Obamacare, that try to bring on Medicare for all. All of those things, this president has shown that he's going to put this country first. So I think people need to understand that if they do win the House, the types of things that they want to accomplish aren't going to be accomplished. Just like when Republicans had the House and the Senate and we had to deal with Barack Obama, we couldn't get the things that we wanted passed because he had veto power. Well, guess what? The shoe's on the other foot now, and now President Trump is going to be able to do the exact same thing to not only fortify his already amazing legacy in only 2 years, but to get to the point where the American people are so frustrated that they're going to vote out the Democrats in 2020, and Trump will then have more Republicans to work with. And then finally, for the last 2 to 3 years, because typically that last year is not much, but maybe you'll get another 2 years of excellent legislation, and we can undo more of the damage, and who knows what will happen in 2024. But you got to look at it as a big picture display, because I think there's a lot of moving parts here, and they will overplay their hand, just as they overplayed their hand on the Kavanaugh hearings. We saw them for who they are and what they are, and they are a violent mob of protesters. And I'm hoping that people want the rule of law instead of the rule of mob in this country.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up this about the justices, because we have to get senators, Republican senators in there, because I think we might be able to get another justice. Another one may retire, or whatever would happen, and Trump would have a chance to nominate a third justice candidate, which means we really have to make sure we get out and really run up the vote, run up the score, and make sure we win every possible seat we can win in both the Senate and the House. This
midterm is so important. You have to understand, President Trump's victory in 2016 was a reprieve. It was a reprieve from socialism, Marxism, communism, progressivism, and any other ism you want to add onto that. Now we have an opportunity, because of that reprieve, to set back the left. And I'm talking set them back 15, 20, 25, 30 years in policy and the things that they want to accomplish. And if we get another Supreme Court justice, then what that will do, likely, is that will guarantee freedom in America for the next 45 to 50 years, at least. Because now you'd have Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, John Roberts, who unfortunately might end up being the next Anthony Kennedy, And then, of course, whoever the next one would be, Amy Coney Barrett or whoever, William Pryor would be my choice, but whoever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you would really have, you know, the ability to protect the Constitution, protect our rights, and protect our, you know, our country, basically, because eventually President Trump will not be president. And when he is not president, there could be a leader in office worse than Barack Obama, make Barack Obama look like Ronald Reagan, for all we know. And if that happens, then the Supreme Court is going to be extremely important, because then it's going to be up to them to stop the fundamental transformation of America that Barack Obama tried to implement and couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this has really been a fascinating talk, and I've learned so much from you, Josh, and you have such great insight and perspective. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about as far as the elections are concerned before we end the show?
Well, look, I would just say that, you know, people cannot be complacent. They cannot be apathetic. And a lot of Republicans will say, well, you know, my person in my district or my senator is a rhino, or they're an establishment hack, or they're a globalist, or they're a fake Republican, or whatever it might be. And then they go, you know what, I don't like that guy. He's not conservative enough for me, so I'm going to stay home. That's exactly what the left wants. They want you to stay home so that they can take over and so that they can win. I've said this many times before. You cannot change the party from the outside looking in. You can only change the party from the inside looking out, meaning that you have to be in a position of power and control in order to weed out the people that don't necessarily fit the platform and the message. So if you have some of those rhino establishment type Republicans, then you can remove them by having other people run against them, and that's how you get rid of them, but your core is still conservative. So I always say that in the primaries, you vote for the most conservative candidate that you possibly can, but if that candidate does not win, then you vote for the person that does, because unlike the Democrats, we don't do that. Democrats could literally have someone, you know, slaughter kittens on national television. But because there's a D in front of their name, all's forgiven, and they vote as one group. Republicans don't do that. They go back and they say, well, you know, John McCain back in 1982 voted on this one bill, so therefore I'm going to stay home. And then we get stuck with someone like a Barack Obama. So take that message to heart. Understand that it is up to us. We can win this. Not only win this, but save this country. This is a very monumental point in history. We are on a teeter-totter right now of almost greatness, if you will, and we've got to keep that greatness going. If folks want to learn more about me, there's a lot of censorship out there. Please go to patreon.com/Josh Bernstein. Please help me defeat censorship there. I'm also on YouTube. You can go to my Wikipedia page, learn more about me there. I'm also on Amazon Television, Amazon Fire Stick Television, Roku Television. Episodes are streaming 24/7 all the time. You can download my free app on Android or iPhone. And of course, as the spokesperson for the incredible and amazing group AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, the true conservative alternative to AARP, you can contact them at 888-262-2006. Again, 888-262-2006. Tell them that you heard about AMAC on the Liberty Beacon, and they'll give you an introductory 1-year free membership by mentioning me and this show in particular. So that's all I wanted to say. And again, Bill, it's always a pleasure to be on your program. Anytime you want me on, I'm a phone call away.
Well, it's an honor to have you. And I want to reiterate what you said about AMAC versus AARP. We talked about this the last time you were on a show with me, and I hope our viewers will start realizing that AARP is not where you want to be. You want to be with AMAC. That's the conservative, patriotic place to be. Okay, yes, thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Where there is no vision, the people perish. That's Proverbs 29:18. So how does that fit into what we're talking about? And what we have to do is we have to have the vision of going out and making this a referendum. We got to run up the score, run up the vote, and make sure that we get as many senators and representatives elected, and that we do it with big numbers. And don't anybody sit at home thinking, well, somebody else will do it and my candidate will squeak by. No, we got to go out and we got to really do this big, to let the nation know, let our country know that, and let all the people know that we really like what's happening in the last 2 years. We like this prosperity. We like this economy. We like all the positive things that are happening, like in North Korea and getting our Pastor Brunson back. All those things are happening. That's what we need to hang on to, and we got to make sure that we vote for them. And while we're doing something, hey, I really would like for you to get the book. And getting the book is getting 2020 a clear vision for America. And what I always say is, just order the book. I'll sign it for you, and I send it out. I don't charge you any fees or taxes or any mailing fees. I cover all that myself. That's my discount to you. And if you buy the book, you'll certainly help me get the word out, because I'm doing all this for you. So it's a great gift too. So, you know, if you've already got the book or you're thinking about the book, I got a lot of people go ahead and get the different packages. And when they do it, you know, they'll get like a book for themselves and a book that they'll gift to somebody. And I sign those and make them into a gift for people. So you can do all that. And let's keep getting the solutions out. We all know what the problems are. 2020, A Clear Vision for America gives you the solutions, and you can go out and use these solutions. You can talk to anybody about any subject there is, because we cover 20 of the biggest issues the political establishment has imposed upon we the people. So anyway, boys and girls, thanks a lot for watching. And I really appreciate Josh being on the show with me. He has such an incredible perspective and insight into just about any topic you can talk about. I should say every topic you could talk about. So God bless you all for watching, and God save our America. We need you now more than ever before.